Welcome to the enchanting world of the Never Cross a Witch Bitch podcast. Prepare to be captivated as we embark on a thrilling journey into the realm of spirituality with our remarkable team of a distinctive energy mixture. Leading the way is Mitch Garlington, a gifted gay male witch, touring stage medium, and psychic tarot card reader. With a background in the competitive corporate world and experience as a Cher impersonator, Mitch brings a fresh and unique perspective to our discussions. Next, we have Lucy Locke, a former fundamentalist Christian missionary turned sex shop manager turned professional dog groomer turned psychic medium, trance channeler, and tarot card reader. Her incredible transformation into the spiritual world is truly inspiring. And last, but certainly not least, we have Carly Batten, a second-generation practicing pagan, intuitive oracle card reader, and spiritual mother to many. Carly brings a grounded approach and simple understanding to the complexities of spiritual living. Together, we form an unstoppable podcast as we delve into all things spiritual and the journey of life. Our mission is crystal clear: to spread the message that spirit embraces all and that each of us is on a spiritual path, whether we realize it or not. So buckle up and get ready for an exhilarating adventure with the Never Cross a Witch Bitch podcast. Please note that all ideas discussed and presented in this podcast are the personal opinions of the individual podcasters and do not necessarily reflect the views of each other or the viewers. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast. It's our 14th episode today. Please excuse us. We're all fucking tired today. We've all had a big weekend. If Carly falls asleep, like if she actually collapses during the podcast, it's not because she's bored. She ran and hosted the most fantastic fair I think we've been to in a while. Mitch, you hold good ones, but this was in a really cool venue, wasn't it, Mitch?
Yeah, this top mine, I have to say, hands up. It made my little events look like a piece of shit compared to
No.
It was good. It was awesome.
It was amazing. It was held at a very fancy hotel in the Wiltshire area, and it was class. It was class. And so Mitch and I did readings there, and Carly ran around like a chicken with her head cut off, making sure everyone was happy and sorted, and it was beautiful and a lot of footfall. I didn't breathe the whole day, and I know Mitch didn't even look up the whole day, and it was an amazing time. Yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, we do plan to talk about past lives. We had a few of you at the fair, which was awesome to see some people that watched. I was going to say actually watched the podcast. It was cool to meet people in person. It was really cool to meet people.
Real life people.
Yeah,
real life people. And did you find it really intimidating? Well, not intimidating, but really wholesome. And there was a couple of times where people come up to me and go, "Oh my God, you're listening to the podcast." I sort of stood there and went, "Oh, I don't know what to do with myself." You know,
I did. I challenged them on which one did you like the best. So
did you? I get you.
Bit of a marketing research sort of thing there. Yeah.
I was standing outside having a vape. I was telling you guys, I was having a vape outside, and then someone started singing, "Nothing's gonna change my love for you." And I looked up, and she was like, "It is a real song." And I said, "I knew it was." It was super cool. It was super cool to run it and know that they're actually listening and invested. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you.
It was listeners. Good. Yeah, absolutely. No, and it was just, there was one lady come up and said, I mean, I'm having an emotional day. Oh, I always have a bloody emotional day. But I had one lady come up and actually say how much she found they were helping, and she was listening to them and how much they'd help. And I was just, it was that moment that made me go, well, thank you. I said to her, "Thank you so much," because that just, we need that as normal people and having a human experience. We do need to know that what we're doing is going to the right people and doing the right thing and coming across how we want it, how we want to help people. And it's just, blooming amazing. So yeah, thank you everybody who tunes in.
Mitch's screen.
Ooh, where are you going again?
I think Mitch's screen is going to be doing a lot of that today, isn't it, Mitch?
It seems to be.
I like that little green hat behind you.
Oh yeah, that little sneaky green hat.
Little green hat.
Yeah, you had your eye on that a couple of fairs ago, didn't you, Mitch?
I did, and it was gifted by a little cheeky witch yesterday. So, yeah, thanks for that.
You gifted him with a lot. You were spoiled, Mitch. Like Carly flippin' spoiled you.
I did.
I had to pay for my breakfast. I had to pay for my breakfast. He got his for free.
That wasn't me. That was the CEO of Bardware. He took care of that. Granddad of Bardware took care of that.
No,
it was a lush time, but like I'm even squinty-eyed today, and I didn't even do a lot. I just read yesterday, but it's the power was incredible, and so the body, because we're humans, comes down afterwards from the energy rush and just
it's like a spiritual hangover, isn't it? Almost.
It is. It's like being in a real high vibe, and you're almost drunk in a way. Does that make sense? Because you're just feeling really good, and everything is flowing, and you just feel the energy of the people, spirit. It just yeah. And so the next day, it is kind of a, isn't it? Not a crash. I think Carly's going to crash. I was imagining her actually in her ponies, mucking out her ponies and like passed out in a hay bale with her pitchfork beside her and drool coming down and her pony's nudging her to make sure she's still alive.
Well, actually, anyway. After you messaged me last night, I did say I'd woken up in the hay loft with the sheep shit stuck to my face. No, I didn't, but
but no, it was incredible. Yeah, it was good. I wish our people overseas and not in the Wiltshire area and stuff like that could have experienced what we did yesterday, because it was a really good time.
Yeah. Oh, maybe you should go international.
Yeah. Oh, no, don't. Oh, come on. I struggle with 3 fairs a year and running the own stall. Maybe we should never say never. I don't know, but no, I mean, it was an amazing event, and I just find nice places and put lots of lovely, nice people in the space, and you create all the. I mean, Mitch. I don't know if anybody's listened to Mitch's guidance for this week, whatever date we're on, 20th of where are we? January, 20th of January.
Inauguration day. It's going to be big on the news. Sorry.
Oh dear. But Mitch said something in his guidance about everybody was on the same page. Everybody was on the same level. There was no better than you, less than you, and it was just like this big community. It was amazing, and that's exactly what it is. But it's everybody in that hall and space that create it. I'm just a gob on the front, but it was just everybody's energies that worked it and created, because it was a big space to fill with energy.
Oh, it was beautiful. The art on the walls. I didn't even realize till after the fair was done. I looked up, and like behind Deb's was a beautiful like sculpture-y thing of a woman breastfeeding a child, but it was so classy, and so I was just like, oh my God, I've been sitting in this like beautiful, classy place. And it wasn't till after when walking through, I felt, oh, we're in class. But then when I like saw after it kind of like ended and my energy kind of like started coming back down, I was like, this is gorgeous around us. Absolutely gorgeous. And you know what, Carly, what amazes me about you is you don't do these fairs for the profit, because I bet you that was expensive doing that. And your tables are not expensive to rent out for the day. So mind-blowing. And you also gift us with water. Like we get 2 bottles of water.
2 bottles of water.
A thing of Kleenex, which I thoroughly enjoy, because I actually cried a few more times than my clients did yesterday. And also too, I get, when spirit's moving, I get a really runny nose. Oh. When I start reading, my nose just starts like dribbling, and so I'm constantly like. That's why I say, like, I hand sanitize my cards myself for my own clients, because I'm the one that's like, here, pick a card, pick some cards. But anyway, it was absolutely. And then you give us a little crystal. You know how many crystals I have from your fairs? You've like started my crystal collection. Like it's just amazing. No, it's amazing. It really is. And and I think even doing that is just the kindness and the energy. Does that make sense? Starts to flow of what this is all about.
You've set the intention by doing that, haven't you, almost?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's in a way, it's self-preservation, to be fair, because if I make sure that all my readers and healers are fueled with water, you're not going to have a funny 5 and fall off a chair. And I have to remember to drink. You save it. It's saving me paperwork.
Yeah, I had to remember. I'm like, oh, I got bottled water. I better start drinking here because I could feel my lips getting all like, from talking and talking and talking, and then the next person comes along, and I'm like, I wonder if I have like a white film. You know how people get that? Like, as I was getting that feeling, I'm like, oh, my lips are pretty yuck.
Yeah.
But anyway,
as one thing I've always noticed from going to fairs is the readers don't get a break and the healers don't get a break if it's busy. And it always is.
I make sure I get a break, but
I know you make sure now you get a break. I think the first fair I went to, I think you were.
Yeah, I used to work
you were back to back.
Yeah,
I remember it always being something that stuck in my head in the first fairs. And I always think, oh, they're going some, back to back, and that's hard work, and it's just nice little. It's just a nice thing to do. You guys, it's your Sunday or your day as well. You've got to have a nice day while you're doing it. It's and if it makes things easier, if it means that you've run out of water because you've drunk all your water and you've got some extra, then it's lovely. And my sister-in-law Hannah comes around with a little thank you token at the end from her
she did
as well.
At the end. The little stag this time. It was beautiful.
Yeah. So it's just it sets a day for you guys. So you're all really important, and I think sometimes I just need, I've always shown how important you all are, because I always say, who's going to want to come and see Bardware, Witches Valley, and 2 other stalls in a venue like that? No, they're not. They're not just going to want to come and see us. They want to come and see everybody. So we're all part of. I think this morning I explained it like making a lovely loaf of bread. We're all the important ingredients, and then you put us there, and we prove, and you put us in the oven, and we come out that lovely, freshly baked loaf that you put lots of butter on and eat when it's warm.
It tastes fucking fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, Carly, you were my first ever fair.
I was your first ever loaf, was I?
Yeah. I was. You were my first ever fair I did, and I remember I was sweating buckets when I came in. I was like shaking like a leaf, and your fairs have been nothing but kind to me. So yeah, I really, yeah. If you get to go to the Carly Bardware Frog Fair, go. We're going to talk about past lives today. So
talk about something, aren't we?
I know that we all have different stories of what we believe our past lives are, and experiences of the evidence that we have these past lives and stuff like that. So I know a little bit about Carly's, but Mitch has been like hanging a carrot all week about his past sordid past life.
A few different bits to mine. I've never actually had like a professional past life done, but the first time I have been shown like a very clear past life connection, and I've also had another experience where a past life person has been channeled and drawn. So I don't know what you want me to talk about first, or should I do both of them?
Whatever you feel like, Mitch, and then we'll go from there. Okay,
because they're separate. They're sort of separate things. So like, let's talk about James first, because I really feel like he's with us today.
I can't wait to hear about James.
Yeah, so quite a while ago, I had this lovely lady. She's a spirit artist who she works down in Glastonbury in the official crystal shop that says crystals. Do you know the chain of crystal shops? I mean, yeah. So she works in there, and she was doing some practice spirit guide drawings, and she's like, oh, can I sort of channel some stuff for you? And I was like, yeah, sure, okay. So she did my spirit guide drawing, which is of my beautiful main guide called Albert. Now what's really interesting with him is I've obviously connected with him many years ago beforehand, and he looks exactly as she drew him, basically. Awesome. Which is really cool because it's double validation. But off the back of the drawing of Albert, she's like, oh, I've also drawn you this other person who's like this more younger character. He reminds me a bit of like a sort of young looking Elvis, I suppose, is how I would describe him a little bit. And she said, this is a guy called James, and he's actually a lover from a past life, but he walks this earth with you. And it's really weird because since she acknowledged him via this portrait, which I can't find, I feel really bad. Sorry, James. I don't know where it is. I've put it somewhere so safe. I'm not quite sure where it is at the moment. But Yeah, like since she channeled him, I've been really feeling him come in quite a lot around me, and it's like she sort of said, you'll feel his energy because you'll feel hands wrapping around your waist when you're washing up or doing stuff, and I feel that all the time. Sometimes to the point where I've thought it's been Paul coming in like hugging me, but he's not very tactile,
Crazy. Yeah.
so he doesn't. So like, but it feels like someone's literally behind me, and it's like, oh, it's fucking James. And I sort of said to this lady, how does James feel about the fact that I'm with Paul in this life? And she's like, this is a temporary connection. You are with Paul in this life and it is a lovely experience, but you will go back to be with James. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about that because obviously I haven't got the memories of being with James anymore. So when my time comes to transfer to spirit, I don't know if I'm going to have to pick one of these men. That could be a bit tricky. So, because I have the life with Paul here now, and it's okay. But I'm thinking, well, what's James got to offer? I need to sort of see the goods, don't I? So
Well, from the drawing, I'd say he's hot. I saw a picture of the
yeah,
drawing and I'm like, oh, he's a hottie.
yeah,
He
he
is
is
a
quite
hottie.
nice.
All
He is quite
pouty
nice.
lipped. Yeah.
But I find it interesting because I've never really come across that before, where she sort of said he gives you, not that he gives you permission, but he's happy that you're with Paul in this life, but this is just for this life. So I won't necessarily be with Paul through other lifetimes, which I find quite interesting.
Well, what was the story of you and him? Did she have a story? Like, was there some
Yeah,
sort
so
of
there's
like, yeah,
yeah, so we were like lovers in many past lives before, and in the last life we were sort of soldiers at war. And
okay.
Albert was also kind of connected. He wasn't like necessarily in the war directly, but he was almost like this elder sort of mentor that was kind of there in the background that we sort of knew. So they're all interlinked. Oh yeah, and like so that was kind of that, and basically like we died together, wrapped in each other's arms on a bomb, basically in the wartime, for World War I. This was, so we were all linked in World War I. Um, and then there was this like sort of separation of like James had to sort of stay in the spirit world. He hasn't reincarnated, but for whatever reason, my energy has, and that's why I'm back essentially this time round. It's odd. It's weird. It's kind of strange.
Mm.
So I don't have a recollection of being with James, but when she was sort of showing me the picture and everything, there was this familiar sort of feeling of like, I feel like I've kind of had this before, but I don't remember it directly. But it feels familiar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Mm.
Resonates
Mm.
inside you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really weird. The other sort of past life energy that I've had was like literally being shown a past life. So I was literally in the shower one day, doing my own thing, getting sort of clean and all the rest of it. And then I felt like I must have been out for about an hour, but it probably was only about 20 minutes. But I was literally, the only way I can describe it is like spirit came in and took me into a cinema setting, and it felt like I was sitting down and I was watching this big screen, and they showed me this life that I had before, and I was sort of this medieval woman that was a witch, a very very sort of high ranking witch, but was really quite dark, quite black, and quite negative. And I inflicted pain on men because I'd been with this partner, this lover, for a long time, and then he cheated on me, and basically she became unhinged off the back of it. She couldn't handle the betrayal, and so I set about causing pain and misery to men for pretty much the rest of my existence, until I was later sort of tried for witchcraft, and I was actually burnt at the stake, which is really interesting because I have this fear of, like, I know I won't be aware of it, but I have this fear of being cremated. I like really do not want my body to be burnt. I want to be buried. So if anyone's with me when I sort of pass over, dig a hole, bury me in the earth. I'll be quite happy, but I do not want to be burnt alive, or not burnt alive, but I just don't want to be burnt. I don't know why, but there's this, and I've always had it with fire where I felt a little bit. It's lovely to watch from a distance, but I've always been cautious of it.
Hmm.
Like,
Wow.
That's
yeah,
interesting.
but I feel it makes sense as to why a lot of stuff happens in this life, because obviously being a gay man and everything else. Not that this is a punishment, this life, because I really don't think it is, but I do wonder if, like, some of the stuff that I inflicted on others and made people feel really shitty is why I've experienced some of the things that have happened in this life a little bit.
Well, I think my personal belief is that that's what happens. It's not a karma thing. It's part of the process of our energy. And
Mm,
like, I felt like Spirit showed me that even though we worship spirit and we go, oh wow, spirit. Spirit is also learning from us.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So you come down and you're actually, okay, you experienced it being a man hater and being really like bitter towards men to the opposite, where you love
Mm.
men and share your life with men. And so it's like it's the yin and the yang, like the temperance. Does that make sense? And like your energy throughout the
Yeah.
years has to, and I think it even goes to minutest scales that we don't even realize that our
And
energy is
it's
just working things out. And
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because, like, with the whole thing of like the yin and yang, like in this life, not so much now, but certainly like in the beginning stages and when I was in the corporate world, a lot of men could not handle the fact that I was a comfortable gay man. Like, they really had a problem with
mm,
my sexuality. And I almost feel like, is that connected to a piece of that backstory with that past life? It does make me really wonder. Yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting. How about you guys? Have
Mm.
you had any sort of like downloads or anything being shown, or have you done a professional past life at all?
Carly?
Loose, loose.
I can start. Yeah,
You
yeah,
came
yeah.
up with me.
Yeah, I've never had it professionally done. I did do, they say not to do it by yourself, but I did do this by myself. And I'm glad I did it, but I can see why they say professional, like get it done with another person. Don't do it by yourself, okay? Because it is like I did one via guided meditation through a woman called Alana Fairchild. I don't know if you guys know her, but she does loads of oracle stuff like that. And she had this past life regression type thing via uh um that you listen to. And so I thought, oh, I'll
Mm,
Mm.
try that. And it was deep. It was intense. So, and it made sense. It totally made sense and it was very unexpected. So when I was young, probably about 10 years old, the movie Platoon came out. Okay. I was probably a bit too young to watch it, a Vietnam War movie, but I did. My parents, my parents were, I would say my dad was more lenient on the types of movies I was allowed to watch. So I was allowed to watch
Mm.
quite horrors and stuff like that from a very young age. But anyway, I was obsessed with this movie. I felt not understanding inside me, like not being able to put it into words, but I felt like I was there. Like that was something I had experienced, and I watched it over and over and over again. The camaraderie, the fear, it was like I knew it. If
mm,
that,
Mm.
yeah. And so then I remember I was in my room and I would write out these like cue cards, like, so I would write out these like little recipe cards, like I was doing a speech. And I was like
Mm.
speaking about a man named David that had died in the Vietnam War. And it was like I was pretending to be his wife and stuff like that. And I would do it sounds odd, it's kids stuff, but it makes
Mm.
sense. And so when I started doing spirit guide stuff, he really came forward, this David, and I could feel his love for me. I could feel, so I don't know if he was a guide or a past life. I don't know. So anyway, I got to kind of get a feeling of who he was. Almost like your
Mm.
James. I felt like he loved me very deeply. Does that make sense?
mm.
And that there was something there in the past.
Yeah,
Like
with
maybe
James,
I
that
had
that
some
is that,
sort.
yeah, that is an unconditional love that I can tap
Yeah,
into whenever. So it sounds similar. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
100%. Like I can the meditations I've had where he's showing up, and especially when I first started my journey into this type of spirituality, he really showed up strong. He's not as strong as before, but he really showed up strong, and it was this unconditional love, like a husband and wife type thing. Like it felt really lovely. Do you know what I'm saying? And I
Mm.
can close
Mm.
my eyes and I can go inside myself and feel that if I
Mm,
want, because that's how palpable it was to me. So it was a big healing thing. So anyway, I did this guided past life thing. And I was going back and I was going back and relaxing the body and boom. It was like, so I was sitting on my bed, kind of like my head against the bedboard, like the headboard, and I had my legs out in front of me. And I had my eyes closed, but in my mind's eye, but then it turned physical, if that makes sense. I could feel it throughout my whole body. I knew I was a man. I could feel the strength in my legs. I knew I was a young man that was very, very strong. I could feel it was weird. It was wild and weird. And in my mind's eye, when I looked down, like with my eyes closed, I could see my legs. They were men's legs, and they were wearing like army fatigues. And I was down in a like kind of a like a dugout, and there was bombs going off all around me, and I could feel the fear running through my body. Like I was so scared, and someone was saying, "Go, go, go." And I got up, and I remember my mind was going, "I can't do this. I can't do this," kind of thing. Like, and then I just, something in me just went, "Ooh," and then just poof, I was gone. So I like lived the death of this person. I feel like this was that David, because he had shown me before that he was a Vietnam in the Vietnam War. And like I don't have interest in World War I or World War II. But the Vietnam War, anything. When I was a kid, I read every book on it. It was weird. It was just an obsession. And I still like stuff about that time. But when that happened, there was like an anxiety that I had in my body for years that left.
Okay.
And it was almost like I don't know how to explain it. I just didn't question it. I chose not to question it. I chose not to doubt it. But it was like I almost had to, like he had, that was like stuck somewhere and it had to come out.
Like a
Stuck
spirit
somewhere in the
release
energy.
almost.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So I had that, which was absolutely wild. And then I think I told it in the last podcast, but I'm not sure. Um, Being in a circle, being put with two women, other women that didn't know anything about my background. And we were talking about, we were supposed to like meditate and see if we could get a past life on the people in the circle. So these two women were meditating over me, like, and getting into my energy. And they both came up with, they could see that I was this archbishop 1,000 years ago, maybe 1,500 years ago, that was really high up. But absolutely terrified of coming against the church, but felt I needed to come against the church, but never did. And
See, that to
and
me feels like this life is you doing the carryover almost of that.
100%, because then my whole Christian life, my deconstruction made sense. And it actually go that, like, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone in this lifetime, I cried my eyes out because it made sense of why I went through this in this lifetime, and it made it worth it, even though it was for my energy 1,500 years ago or whatever. Now, last night, when I was traveling home from your affair, I was fucked. Okay, like I scarfed a McDonald's down. I had a double quarter pounder, large fries, a mocha frappe, and then a chicken mayo burger. Like I was like, I
Bloody
had to
hell.
like, oh yeah, so I'm sitting.
Chow
We went to
down.
the drive-thru. Colin's driving. Minnie's in the back seat with her headphones on, just in La La Land with her music, and I was just like I didn't even breathe. Okay, like I was eating it and eating. I remember I could. It was in the dark, so I couldn't even see. It's really neat eating in the dark. You can't see the food, but you can taste it. And it's a totally different. McDonald's tastes even better in the dark. Like I was just like, wow. But anyway, I remember feeling like the mayonnaise from the mayo burger on the side of my face, and I was like trying to wipe it. Anyway, I had this download, and it was probably because I was thinking too about like this past life podcast that we were doing today. I was, numerous people came up to us and said, "Do the past life podcast. Do the past life podcast." So, I remember when I was young, around that, well, probably even younger than that 10-year-old girl, Luke. Um, anytime a black person died in a movie, I got very upset and I would cry my eyes out. And it was like really powerful to me, and especially anything about slave time.
Okay.
I really, really would get really upset, not even understanding the whole premise of what was going on. And then my grandfather in this life, he's English, he's white. You know what I'm saying? He's as white as they come, okay? But I would see black men in movies or black men in life, and I would feel my grandfather there. And I never understood what was going on because I'd be like, oh, he's like my grandfather, but he's black. But so last night it was like a feeling like my grandfather and I were back, and that made sense of that whole like everything going there, that somehow I might have been in the slave times with my grandfather and something happened to him. Does that make sense? And because it like I don't know how to explain it. It makes sense to me in my body, but to put it out in words is like
it's that feeling of being familiar, even though you don't know how to
100,
communicate.
100%. And that me and my grandfather somehow, and I think either he was my dad or my grandfather. Does that make sense? But somehow I saw him suffer, because when I see a black man suffer in a movie, my grandfather comes into my mind's eye, and it really, all of it upsets me. And it doesn't make sense to me. But it really upset me when I was a child. Like I have better control of it now, but it's still there where I go, whew, that hits home, and I don't understand why, because I'm a white lady. Do you know what I'm saying? Living in Wales and raised in Canada, that, you know, isn't part of that south of in the Americas. Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it?
I
think a lot of the time,
Ollie.
That's what I was going to say. I think a lot of the time when we feel that familiar, blah, 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 familiar. Oh,
you're so tired. I feel so sorry.
That's the kiddie. Thank you. That word that Mitch says. I think sometimes when we feel that, brain fart. I think that is a point. I think we know in ourselves. I know a lot of the time we doubt it and go, "Oh, is that, you know, is it just because it's a trend or it's a fashion?" Or, but I think if we really looked at it, that feeling would give us a tiny look. Yes, like you say, we might not remember what happened in a past life, but there'd be a reason why you find you're comfortable with that feeling, or you can feel that connection. You know, it's like it's not like you could say, oh, you were brought up studying your family, you know, like Lucy's family. You can't say that Lucy's family was brought up studying slavery in, you know, in America, and that's why you'll possibly feel drawn to it. You know, you're saying that doesn't work. It's something completely different from the lifestyle you've been brought up in, or from any connection. It's not like your father did a history course or your dad did a history course or something, which means you've unintentionally taken on that interest. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. I mean, I had a past life. I don't know. I think one that's definitely stuck in my mind just recently, which I think Mitch knows about. I don't know if I've told Lucy. I can't remember. Anyway, so everybody knows I talk about quite a lot. My best bud, which is Valley. And we do a lot together. And Em is one of the people that I've connected with in my life. You suddenly feel like I've known her all the time. You know, there's something there, whether or not we were, I don't know whether or not we were sisters at some point, or I think it was just, I think when we're together, it's a sisterly love rather than, you know, ex-partners or something like that. But it's a real deep connection. It's a family connection. You know, she'd know exactly when, we still now know exactly when we're off or things aren't right, or, you know, it's there's definitely something there. So it was in Glastonbury, and Emma used to actually live in Glastonbury. She used to live on the back of the farm where they used to have they have Glastonbury Festival, music festival. So she used to live in Pilton. So she comes from that area anyway, and we do Glastonbury Medieval Fair as a thing. So we go, it's in the grounds of the Abbey. Now, before even doing that, my other half took me to Glastonbury for my birthday, and we walked up the tour. And I just felt like going home. It felt that familiar. It felt like I was going home. So I had a bit of an experience up the Tor. I walked all the way up to the top of the Tor, and as I walked in, there's obviously still the stone tower left, but that originally was a church. So it was a stone tower with a wooden structure on the front that in a big storm, it all blew down. And I walked in and I actually saw this monk in my mind's eye hanging. I didn't know any of the history of it.
Like suicide hanging.
Like, oh, no, hanged for treason.
Execution.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Execution! Oh wow! Wow!
Well, I found that out later. It wasn't a suicide, but I found that out. I realised at the time it wasn't hanging for suicide; it was hanging for another reason. And I remember looking up and seeing in my mind's eye sandaled feet. And I was a bit like, when you go, I don't want to look any further because I'll be looking right up his tunic. I thought, I don't want to see that. But I was bit like,
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I would have been like right up in there.
This poor man.
So I sort of, did I say that? Did I say that? I'm sorry, Carly.
Gosh, she always does it, doesn't she?
Lower the tone.
Oh dear, I don't know. Anyway, so this poor chap, I remember seeing his sandaled feet and then seeing sort of the hem of the brown monk's tunic, and I was a bit like, I don't know if I really want to look any further. And I also said, I don't want to know this today. I'm here for other reasons, I then actually, when I came away from being up at the Tor, which I felt very at home, but I also saw lots of other things as well. I saw a battle in my mind's eye. So I saw lots of Saxons and lots of Danes. That's before watching Last Kingdom. And we all love a bit of Uhtred. Thank you very much. But it was all before that,
Who?
Letting out my Uhtred. Oh, have you never watched Last Kingdom?
No, that's a genre I do not enjoy. We'll talk about this kind of thing in a second, what you're drawn to. Does that make sense? And yeah, I've not, yeah.
Oh, that's very nice. Nice bit of eye candy. Oh, anyway.
I'm gonna Google it.
Oh, Alexander, what's his said name? The chap who plays it is Alexander somebody. That is all
what,
anyway.
Skarsgård?
Alexander, what's that?
Skarsgård? I look like a dragon.
No,
I'm sorry, you guys.
I can't remember.
We'll
anyway,
we're going
down a rabbit. We're going down a rabbit hole, aren't we? But I remember standing at this tour and seeing all these battles going on. Shields and Shield War and all that malarkey, and it was just really, really interesting. But I still felt really home, and it was really powerful. I went down the tour, do the touristy bit as you do. So this is before I've even got there with Emma. Done a bit of research on the tower, found that a monk had been executed there, found out a bit about him and was a bit like, ooh, okay, So quite a lot of spiritual experiences, things were happening, being fed to me. So long story short, me and Emma then go to do Glastonbury Medieval Fair for the first time. And we're traveling there for the first time. And I said to her, this feels like going home. And we were like putting up the stall. And I said, I just feel like I'm home. And this was in the Abbey grounds, a bit further over. And she's like, well, she said to me, it sort of was. And I said, oh, yeah, I can understand that. So I've always felt very comfortable. And then not last year, but the year before, me and Emma were there. And we walked into the Abbey in the ruins. And there's old bits and newer bits. The legend so has it, but I do think it was a publicity stunt that King Arthur's, well, we sort of know it's a publicity stunt, that King Arthur's tomb was found there with Lady Guinevere and things like that. But that's another story for another day, my historian head. So the older part of the Abbey is, if you walk in the main entrance you've ever been, it's up the further end of it. And me and Em walked up, and there's something about Glastonbury, the Abbey and the Tor. There's just something that the High Street's quite commercial, but and there is just something about it. It's got this lovely energy and this lovely vibration. And me and Em walked up the end, and I walked into this, what I could then see in my mind's eye was like a room, a bit like a vestry. So you went through this, not through a door, but behind a big velvet curtain. And in the wall, there was like a dip, what would be like a built-in bowl, you would like have like a wash bowl. And I've never felt it before, but it makes me go funny. But I put my hand on the top of it, and I could feel the stone humming. It's part of a wall, but this stone was humming, and I could feel the vibration. You know, when you get that electricity pylon, that hum, I could feel that. And I was just like, first, I put my hand on it first of all, I was like, oh, I don't know if I like to do that, And I was like, no, come on, you'll be all right. So I put there and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then I turned around and Emma was stood with me, what would have been just outside the vestry. And as I turned around and stood next to her, so we were inside what would have been in the main abbey. So we're just inside the walls, because obviously some walls still there, but some there's just footings. And all of a sudden, I could see the floor, the black and white tiled floor with red bits in it, the sun coming through the stained glass window, the pattern it was creating on the floor, the whole building. I could see the whole chuffing building right up, how tall it was. It was huge, bloody huge. And I could see everything. I could see the monks running around. There was this feeling of, it's making my legs tingle now. I could feel this energy of, it wasn't quiet. They were getting ready for something. There was like a feast or something was going on, but it wasn't like manic. It was just, there was busyness. But I could see everything. I could see the floor, the sun, the stained glass windows, the roof, the everything. And I turned around and looked at Em, and she looked at me, and I went, can you see what I see? And she went, what, the floor, the sunglass windows, the roof? I went, yep.
That's crazy.
So the pair of us, but we were stood there, not as ourselves. We were stood there in, like, if I looked down, I could see my medieval, like peasant medieval dress, but tidy. Sort of, and I could see it, and I could see hers. And for once, we were the same height. Now, I'm shorter than Emma. People that know me know I'm a short ass, and she's a lot taller. You have friends in high places; they can reach stuff. So she's a few inches taller than me, but we were the same height, and younger. And I don't know what the connection was, but it got to a point that it started. My legs started to hum. And I could feel them. And I said to Em, I'm going to have to go and stand outside. I'm going to have to step out of where we were and literally like stand outside the abbey. And she said, no, that's fine. So I stepped out, sat down, and just took a couple of deep breaths. But it was we both saw exactly the same thing at exactly the same time. The windows, the fullness, the whole shebang. And as we were talking about it afterwards, she's like, we've been here before. So at some point, we had been there together at that same point in time in that place.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And we can't explain how, why. It's never happened again, but we just know when we go to the Abbey, we feel very at home. I can't explain it. For both of us to have that experience, I can't explain it. Because I just looked at her and she looked at me. Well, she looked down at me. I looked up at her, and it was just like, and I just said, "Can you see what I'm seeing?" And I didn't even give her a hint. And she just explained. She just described the whole thing, and I was just like, And it was an amazing experience. But it got to a point that my body was. I thought, if I don't step out and sit down, I'm going to fall down. So I'm like, I need to come out of this. And yeah, I mean, I've always had a connection with medieval stuff, thinking back, like you were saying, Lucy, about watching Platoon and things like that. I mean, I've always had a thing about, been fascinated about Doomsday Book and medieval history. I mean, I grew up in a really lovely place just outside London called Ruislip, which is full of like medieval history. And I was really, we done a project. I remember doing it. I was junior school, so I must have been 8, and we recreated the whole of Ruislip village as it would have looked in medieval times. And I was absolutely besotted by it. Absolutely loved it. And I've always went to Wales on a history school trip, GCSE history school trip. We'd done Kidwelly, Pembroke, Raglan Castle, and I've always gone, oh, it's the castle. And I don't think that's just because of princesses and knights, I've just always had that thing of being drawn towards it. And it's just really, I just feel really at home.
Wow. Yeah.
In England's dark ages, when we all live in a muddy puddle. I wish I'd picked a better era. But it's always something that's
Sorry, Carly.
amazing.
Yeah. I'm like, you are attracted to the medieval times. What about you, Mitch? Is there like a genre of like that you've realized throughout your life that you're really attracted to?
It kind of is similar. It's medieval, it's King Arthurian time period. Like as a kid, I was obsessed with Merlin the Wizard and like going to Tintagel and all of this sort of stuff. That was heavy, but also really randomly. I've never been to America, but I have this real feeling or this real like wanting to go to America, but I don't know particularly why. And it's New York. I really feel a connection with New York, and it's not necessarily to go like see the shops or whatever else. It's just a feeling, and I find that really weird because in this life I don't like hustle and bustle. I hate. I mean, it's bad enough going to London. I hate it. So I'm almost a bit like, why would I be or drawn to want to go there? But I do. I get it all the time. Like, oh, I want to go to New York. And if there's something being shown that's got New York in it, I'm quite interested in that or seeing what it's about. So I don't know.
Is there a genre of like a time scale of you think that you maybe were in New York? Like, is there like
I feel
a
it's like the
40s thing
50s.
or
Yeah, 40s and 50s. I get that sort of that presence. But again, with this James guy, I feel like he might be from that time period. So it's interesting.
Well, even
You
his
know?
haircut has got that little swoop in the picture. Maybe we'll don't know if we can add it. If you can send it, maybe Colin when he's editing this can put it
Well, he might be able to put
figure
it on,
out.
yeah, at the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, but he has that little like,
Little Elvis
swoop.
kind of quiff almost,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Oh,
Carly, you said you were really attracted to the 19
oh yeah, the 50s thing,
40s
didn't
to
you?
the 50s girls, like right in
40s,
that era.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing. It's like I always thought it might have been because my granddad was in the Second World War, and um my my other granddad he would have been my great granddad. He was in the First World War, a bit like Warhorse.
Hmm.
So he used to look after the horses in the First World War, my great granddad. Um, and I always thought there was a bit of a connection with the military side of things because of those two particular people. And I don't know, again, it's something else that feels very comfortable. The horses and that sort of Second World War, the 1940s.
Hmm.
When I put it on, it felt like it was something I'd always done. I mean, I've been watching Call the Midwife. Oh, there we go again.
No,
I've been
not doing anything. I'm just sat in my room.
I've been watching things like Call the Midwife, and if you ever watched that, the first few series is just coming out of the second, just coming out of post-war era. Things are still being rationed, and that feels in a really weird way. Feels really like I'm quite attracted to that. I quite attract, that I'm drawn to that type of that feels normal. And I like
Yeah.
that oldie worldy. I don't know if it's because I'm trying to hold on to the history, but I do feel I'm just doing it again. I do feel very comfortable wearing the clothes. I when I was a lot thinner. And that whole, I don't know if it's because it's tailored, it was smart, but it felt right. It made me feel really good, and I felt really comfortable. So again, it's that familiar thing. I mean, I have had a past life reading with someone,
Oh, did you?
but it wasn't. Not completely. It's
Not
touched
like a
on it.
regression, like.
No, it was a reading, but they touched on the past life, which was really interesting because they didn't actually at the time. I'd done DNA ancestry swipe, my heritage or something. And my granddad had done history. Now I know that my strain of the Batten family came from Germany, so we're Germanic, which no one else, not you guys know now, but no one else at the time would have known. And I sat down in front of that person, and we sat there, and they started doing a past life, and they turned around and said, "Well, you come from a Germanic strain," and I just sat there and went, okay. And I don't look German. I don't know how Germans are supposed to look, but I don't think I look like your typical
Yeah.
German. I think it's been heavily diluted because I think we came over in the 1600s, so it'd been heavily diluted. But they then went into saying about they were then starting to pick up on past life in the 1400s. Now, they wouldn't have known that my family would have come over in the 1600s. So they're looking back to Germanic times, being Germanic, but in Germany in the 1400s. And the fact that actually I was a herbalist, which would fall into how I'm working with animals, being with animals, being a herbalist, going off on my own, making, helping people, which would fall into what happens now. And they didn't know me. They wouldn't know that I'm into horses. This is when Bardware was quite quiet. I don't even think Bardware was around, to be fair. So it wouldn't have been anything that anyone else would have known. But like you're saying, of the familiarities. And yeah, and interestingly enough, my dad, obviously the family come from Germany, but my dad, when he actually traveled around Germany and felt very comfortable traveling, he wanted to move to Germany at one point when he was 21. So before he even met my mum. He's very attracted to that type of thing. So, and he wouldn't, my granddad wouldn't have done the family. No, I don't think he'd done the family history then. So my dad wouldn't have even been drawn to Germany because my granddad had said, that the family came from Germany. Dad went there because he felt drawn to go. So isn't it interesting?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, like a big draw, and it's in my teens, I did it way before it became popular. Massive hippie. I felt like I was like, and it might be the David or whatever, this guy, if that was a past life or I don't know, but somehow that whole Vietnam, but I was also like a hippie, if that makes sense. And like the music from when I was young, everything just totally got me going. I loved it. It got me excited. So like I remember when I was probably 14, I got like bell bottoms and I wore bell bottoms all the time. I wore my dad's like old Peruvian sweater that had llamas all over it, and people just thought I was a bit weird. And then the hippie thing made a massive comeback, and I was like, I was like, oh.
You were ahead of your time.
I was there before you.
Yeah, but I just always have had that feeling like I have said, oh, I was born in the wrong, you know how you say you're born in the wrong time. I was born in the wrong time. I was meant to be a hippie, and so that was a big one. And then another one, and it might be my childhood, but I know a lot of people around my age are drawn to that. So it might be the energy of that age brought into now. Does that make sense? But Little House on the Prairie came out, and I mean people like my age group.
I used to watch that. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I felt like I was there. Does that make sense? Again, that feeling of like that is a major part of my life, and anything kind of that takes place in that genre of time in the late 1800s and stuff like that, totally I'm drawn to. Anything kind of in America where they're living amongst the natives or the indigenous, and they're like, farming and doing like almost Western style, like not old Westerns, but that Western style kind of thing really gets me intrigued. And I feel like home, like you said, that feeling of home. Yeah.
Just to let you know, guys, we're over the Witcher hour. Sorry, we started
Holy,
late.
that went fast.
Yeah, no, 2 o'clock.
I just have another question for you guys. Do you think lives overlap? So, like, what I mean by lives overlap, let's say, like, for instance, I feel like, I could have been, like, from the 60s, lived in that hippie age. That would have been my mom's and dad's age. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you think, this is just a question that, like, because I believe, like, we pick each other before we come, and we live many lives doing different things. This is what resonates inside of me. Do you think, like, I could have been alive as an adult when my parents were kind of like alive as an adult?
A bit sort of
like, do you know what I'm saying? Like the overlap.
What Spirit have? Now this is interesting because what Spirit have shown me is that those lives carry on even though we're having this life. So I feel the timeline, we're still having that life back there, even though we're having this life now. And Spirit have shown me that quite a lot through meditation. Like there's multiple versions of us having multiple lives all overlapping and into thread with this life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because that makes sense with what Spirit's showing me is that like the energy, like our energy, sorry, can visit different. Does that make sense? Like I can be here, but like, and some people can astral project and remember it. Does that make sense? But like the energy's not stagnant necessarily inside of it. It's like, and maybe that's why we can do healing from afar, or
because there's been quite a
connect
lot
with
of
people
studies,
afar.
haven't
Yeah.
they? There have been studies where it's been proven that there are multiple dimensions and there are other versions of us. And if we did different life choices, if we didn't pick the life we've got now or do the things, there's like another version of us. So, like for instance, my Cher impersonator, there may be a version of me somewhere that is a successful Cher impersonator. But that's quite tricky when you go into that.
Well, Colin's really into that. He believes in all that. Even though he's not spiritual, he believes in all that kind of like multi-dimensional lifetimes and lifelines going on and then different, almost like a matrix type system.
Or it's a bit like, when some people say, have like doppelgangers, when you get two people look really similar and they're like different parts of the world on this timeline.
Yeah.
Who's to say that that's not, who's to say that soul can soul split into two energies?
Well,
exactly.
A lot of cultures believe that kind of thing.
So
you know what I'm saying?
You've got two of you in the world, that both look very similar. I mean, I've had people, not to me, but I've had people, I've spoken to people that have had somebody say, "Oh, I saw you blah, 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 in the other part of the country," and they go, "Well, I wasn't even there," but they look completely the same, but obviously different parts of the world and things like that. Same mannerisms, same thought pattern, same, different life experiences because they're on a different life, but they're on the same time frame because they're here. So I'm wondering if that's like one soul having a
like you, Carly, here in England, and maybe there's a Carly that's down in Africa, or you know what I'm saying, like
or Australia, with a different name called Melanie, who would be my alter ego, a bit like Krampus and Father Christmas, that type of thing,
Well, the indigenous believe in I think it's called two-spirited. Please, anyone out there, tell me if I'm wrong, but people that feel they're like male or female. Does that make sense? Like male and female, that kind of thing. That's been around, like of the same binary. Is that what they call it when you don't feel like
either gender?
Either gender, or men that maybe want to be a woman and women that maybe want to be a man. That's been around. Well, that's been around, but they actually that was part of their cultures. Those people were called two-spirited or twin-spirited or something like that. That there was two spirits inside the person to live out this life.
That's interesting.
And
do you know accepted. What I find? Going down a bit of a rabbit hole, what I find really interesting is The Simpsons. I don't know if you guys watch it, but like they always seem like there must be
the predicting things, don't they?
Yeah, but years before it happens, like the latest Simpson thing is with the Trump stuff, and then also this Trump stuff. How do they know this? Have they got access to time travel?
It's crazy, isn't it? But I do believe Spirit gives prophecies, and it can be prophecies through stuff like that we would consider so muggle. Does that make sense? Because I think it was 1997, they had a whole episode that Trump became president. Like Trump didn't even have The Apprentice back then. It was his TV show. This was like when he was a real estate mogul in New York. Like that's just absolute. I forget what other prophecies they've done where it's like
there's
come to pass.
Yeah. It's crazy. What was I going to say? That might be like a topic for another day, like going deeper with that. But
because I have thoughts on that's something that bothered me growing up, because you have some prophecies that come true and some that don't, and that's, do you know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. But yeah. Oh, what an interesting episode, you guys.
That was a cool one.
Yeah, your stories are cool. Super cool.
And it's interesting how we've all got different stuff, yet we've all had very the stuff that we has is very matter of fact for us in a sense, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I feel Spirit really strongly saying, like, there's people out there that are listening that have had experiences and they've really either felt weird about them, questioned their
suppress them
sanity,
down, yeah.
suppressed them down. And, you know, like for me, stuff, and for you guys, it happened when we were younger too. And like, it doesn't get like evidence or stuff for years, but that's the beauty of Spirit. And like, that's Spirit's really showing me that, like, in the last few years, like, my God, the stuff that didn't make sense to me as a child or a teenager or in my early adult years are starting to really make sense now.
No.
And it's like the beauty, it's like a beautiful, like, Spirit's got me. Does that make sense? Spirit's got me. Spirit understands me. Spirit remembers those times. Spirit, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just this feeling of being taken care of, and that they'll, even if it takes a lot of time to pass, they'll answer your questions. Yeah.
I feel it as like a life tapestry, and all these pieces are being sewn together to get the bigger discovery of self or understanding of why you've reascended, or merging into that one essence of now sort of thing.
That's awesome. That was lovely how you put that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, on that note, guys, I think that's probably quite a cool one to end on, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, what, Mitch, you're going to lay down for a little nanny nap, and
I am. I'm definitely going to have a little nap.
Carly doesn't stop, so we'll find her on the side of the road
somewhere. Should be
whirlwind
somewhere. Yeah.
So the whirlwind will stop and she'll just be on the side of the road and then wake up and then like
I'll be lent on the pony gate. Wake me up later.
A carrot out of her mouth and the pony's just chewing on the carrot. Oh, well, lovely. I can't wait for next week, you guys.
Oh, no, it's be good.
And I'll say it was awesome seeing both of you in the flesh. It'd been a little while yesterday.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Been nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It has been nice. Yeah, definitely. Oh.
Well, lots of love and light from Lucy over here.
Take care, guys, from Mitch. And I'll see you soon.
Till next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye for now.